Hi everyone, this is Ilina and welcome to another LDRS creative card video. In this video, we're going to make a slimline card and we're going to use few products that were recently released. So we're using the Pixie Pals stamp set along with the coordinating die set, and I'm going to use only the unicorns for this card. Next, we're going to use the Stitch Circles Miss You word die. The stitch circles coordinate with the stitch circles that come within the Slim Line Scallop die, and they're meant they coordinate in a way that you can stack them together. They nest with each other. So we're only using the outer border from the die set, and we're gonna cut it twice from white cardstock. The dimension of the front that it cuts, it's 3 1/4 by 8 1/4. And I already cut 2, and next we're cutting 3 of the Miss You die from some coral pink cardstock. So what we're gonna do with those, we're gonna stack them together by adhering them together. So if you notice these dies, it's a single die instead of separate words. As well, you can use the positive and then a negative. So we're just using the letters, the die cut letters, the positive from the die cut, and I set aside the negative for future use. So we're gonna create a card base that will be 3 1/4 by 8 1/4, as big as our panel is. So I cut a cardstock that measures 6 1/2 by 8 1/4, and then I scored a 3 1/4 and fold it in half. So now we have all the 3 pieces here that we're gonna layer together. And before we move to assembling the card, we're gonna stamp 3 of the unicorns. And I'm stamping them on white cardstock. The cardstock I'm using is alcohol marker friendly, and I'm using the Raven black ink to stamp those. The Raven hybrid ink is alcohol marker friendly and as well as is waterproof, so you can use it with different mediums for coloring, and it won't bleed. So I'm stamping a couple times. I'm using my stamping positioning tool, and then I'll turn my paper and stamp one more time so I don't have waste of paper. And I'm gonna save those for future use. Again, I'm stamping a couple times to make sure that I have nice and intense black outline of my unicorns. I'll just pull that out. I'm pulling out the coordinating dies, and you can see those are separated dies. They're not connected with wires in between, so they're ready to use. You don't need to cut anything in between. So I have the coordinating dies, and I'm gonna go off the camera and cut those out. So we have the 3 little unicorns here. So I'll put those aside, and now what I'll do is I'll adhere each letter, each 3 layers of the letter using liquid strong adhesive. I'm gonna make sure that they're lined up, and I'm gonna put an acrylic block on top so they dry flat. I'm gonna repeat the same process for the rest of the letters. If you notice, there's like 2 S letters, so we have 6, so we're gonna separate those 3 and 3, so we can spell the miss with 2 S's. So we're done with those. Next, we're gonna move to coloring the unicorns, and I'm using alcohol-based markers. You can use any coloring medium of your choice. So I'm just doing quick coloring. Nothing really special. I'm using yellows, pinks, blues, light orange, and light grays for the unicorn. I'm just going to move really quick with the coloring. After I'm done coloring the bodies of the unicorn, I'm going to color the tails and the hair. I'm using a blender, like colorless blender, to blend it in and lighten up that gray. So here you can see that I'm coloring the tails and the hair. I'm using like 2 tones. On one side I'm doing one color, on the other side different colors, so they're meeting in the middle, the both colors that I'm using. Next, to add a little bit more interest, I'm using some sparkle pen to add to the hair and the horn. And I'll do the same to the letters. I'm just covering the letters with that sparkle pen to have nice and shiny effect. This is a little bit harder when it comes to photographing your card later, but in real life it looks so much nicer and kind of sparkly with the unicorn. It goes so well. So I'm gonna put those aside. Next, what I'll do is I'll try to assemble my card, kind of position where everything I want it to go, to see where my unicorns will go and where the sentiment would go. So I just spelled here Monsieur. Next, I have the 3 unicorns. I'm gonna position them on my card front. So where the unicorns, I'll use one of the scallop circle dies to cut out circles. And then we have the second panel will go underneath and we're going to do some ink blending on it. I decided to use, instead of the ones that come in the Slim Line Scallop, I'm using the one from the Stitch Circles. I'm just using a pencil to draw a line, like outline from that circle, so I know where to cut when, because we're going to cut them separately, because I have, there's only one die from the same size and I wanted all the openings to be the same size. So here is our front, and next we have the second panel that we cut out, so you see how this will go in the openings. And I'm just making sure I'm just marking where the openings are, so I don't need to ink blend all the the entire panel. So I'm using Marina Madness and Little Boy Blue for the top. And then the bottom, I'll use Soft Kisses and Tangerine Dream. So I'm starting with the pink on the bottom, and then I'll do the orange. So this is the Soft Kisses. I'm just making sure that we have, where we have the opening on the top panel, it kind of goes through the first one, the bottom one goes through on the pink, and the top one on the orange. So I think we have good coverage. I'm just sprinkling with some shimmer white paint, and then with some white acrylic paint diluted with a little bit water to have a little bit more interest and texture. So I'll let that dry. After it had dried, I'm just adding some not fun foam, but foam tape on back of that panel with the openings. I'll remove the backing and I'm going to adhere it onto the ink blended panel. I'm using my scoring tool to make sure that I'm adhering that both layers are lined up. I'm just going to press to make sure that it's nice and secure and well adhered. Next, I'll add some liquid adhesive on the back and adhere it to my note card that we already made previously. That was 6.5 by 8.25, and then we scored it at 3.25. I'm gonna press it down, let it dry. Once it dried, I'm using some foam squares to adhere the unicorns. And next we're gonna move to adhering the letters to spell Monsieur. I'm using again liquid adhesive because it gives me a little bit more wiggle room, so I can move if I adhere something a little bit offside or like a little bit crooked. It gives me a little bit more time so I can fix that. So we have done that. Next I'm adding some iridescent jewels. Again, I'm using liquid adhesive to adhere those down to my card. Now we're done, and as a last step I'm adding some clear lacquer pen onto the letters to add a little bit more dimension. So I'm just finishing that up. Making sure that we have nice coverage, and I'll let this dry. And with that, we have finished our card. Thanks for stopping by, and see you soon in another video. Bye!